then there's Chainsaw Man. Should I describe Chainsaw Man?
Yeah, go for it.
This one's wacky. This one's pretty crazy.
Have you ever read Fire Punch before?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. Not the whole thing.
Okay, so Chainsaw Man is by the same author as Fire Punch, that's Tatsuki Fujimoto. And Fire Punch, his previous work, is way out there. It's a very extreme story, and it's more mature. I would say it's aimed at like a higher demographic.
And it's the same for this one.
Well, that's what's so cool. I really appreciate the fact that it is almost an expansion of Shonen Jump to see like a series this dark in it, and I really think it's cool that the Fire Punch is, I think of it more as like, it's very popular, but it's more of like a niche dark series, right? So it's really cool to see him kind of adapt that setup in that format into more of a Shonen Jump style. Because this has everything that you need to set up like a Shonen Jump manga. It's got this layer of crazy that is this author. But anyways, you can hop into the plot.
So the main character, Denji, he's like a demon hunter because his father was one too. Maybe you should describe this one.
I could go for
He
it.
finds a dog with a chainsaw on his face.
So, Chainsaw Man opens up with a boy who is down on his luck. The series opens up with him selling his organs in order to pay out this debt.
I thought that was stupid, but okay.
Embrace the edge!
What, did he even have an eye patch at the end? He was just back to normal, right?
His body completely reformed, so it would have made sense.
Why did he do that? Why? What was the point of him selling organs?
Okay, wait. Can I start over? Spoiler, I really like this series, which is why I want to introduce it right. So, continuing on where we left off, Denji friends a tiny demon who is half dog, half chainsaw, Pochita. Pochita's face is just a big old butt with a chainsaw coming out of it. It's great. And as the story develops, you learn that Denji has these very simple dreams for the future. He just wants to live a normal life where he can eat food, have a roof over his head, maybe have a girlfriend. But he gets betrayed by the Yakuza, cut up into bits, and while he's cut up into bits, Pochita fuses his body with him so that he can form Chainsaw Man. And as Chainsaw Man, he just goes absolutely insane and tears up all of the demons and Yakuza that had imprisoned him in the first place. At the end of the chapter, it's hinted that he will be joining this sort of like anti-demon defense force and sort of perhaps achieve his dream of living a decent life.
Yeah, with cute girl.
With cute girl.
That was kind of funny. Like, she says she's going to take him in as a pet. It's good.
I did like it. There was some really great parallels. And just to start off, I absolutely love this one shot, and I'm so excited to be able to read the rest of the series. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I think the first 5 out of 5 I've given so far. And the reason is because this chapter is a complete story.
Mm-hmm.
You could almost stop here and it tells everything about his dreams of wanting something more, his betrayal, he reaches a low point, and then finally he's rescued and there's this hint of a greater life on the other side.
Where he can eat bread with jam.
Bread toast with jam. That's all he wants. Yeah, and the moment when he becomes Chainsaw Man and the chainsaws just start ripping out of his body because he is composed of chainsaws.
So cool. His head becomes like this. What was that, like, triangle head character? Pyramid head?
From the Silent Hill franchise, yeah. He embodies the chainsaw, and it's just insane. I have so many... another good thing about this, which I think that any good first chapter should have, is that I have so many questions.
Yeah.
What does this mean? What is he? What are the extent of his powers? How does he level up his chainsaw ability? All of that.
Yeah. For me, I didn't really care so much about the story. I just kind of liked the action of Chainsaw Man, and I gave it a 3 out of 5. But I would read more because I just like seeing him wreck stuff. And I did like the end. That was where I was like, I actually got interested in the story, was like the last page, where he's gonna go off with this girl. So
if you compare it to the other Shonen Jump series that we've read, you were mentioning before that, for instance, in Black Clover, a lot of these manga end up with these big goals, right? It's like, I'm gonna become the Wizard King. I'm gonna become the Hokage, the Pirate King, right? This series ends up with him saying, sick, I can have a meal. That's the extent of his dreams at this point.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's almost is I would almost describe this as like a subversion of a shonen manga because what he dreams of is just being able to exist and to live. And who knows what's going to happen in the rest of the series or how this is going to change. But I love that about the character, about how what connects Pochita and him is that Pochita always loved to hear him talk about his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And the dreams that he has are so simple.
Yeah, Pochita talked. He spoke.
That's my other question. Does he keep on talking with Pochita, or is Pochita kind of gone? I want to figure that out in further chapters.
I hope that he's still in there somewhere. His little tail sticks out.
It's great. And just one of my final thoughts on it. I got really strong millennial vibes from this story because this is kind of like linking it into, I guess, perhaps American culture. I don't know if Japan feels about this the same way, but I feel like you hear about millennials complaining all the time that they're overburdened by debt, that all they want to do is lead a simple life, but it's just like the circumstances that they're in about whether they can find reasonable employment or whatever that's kind of holding them back. And also just like them finding comfort in pets and just,
In toast with fancy toppings.
Oh my goodness. And I'm not saying that like none of the other generations felt this way. I'm just saying that this feels like a story of our generation, especially the focus on when the action scenes occur. It reminded me of like the grindhouse like horror films, that you kind of watch growing up that I feel like our generation would have watched. So that was an interesting vibe that I got from the series, and I'm interested to see if that trend kind of continues further. But yeah.
Yeah. 3 out of 5. But I'll read more.
I love, and while we're going through this, by the way, every time that you have a different score, I just think like, oh, your taste was horrible. Like, how can you say that? And I'm excited to see, I'm glad that we have different takes, though. I was worried we would be more similar. Okay, next is Dr. Stone. You want to introduce Dr. Stone?
In this first chapter of Dr. Stone, we have Taiju, who is trying to profess his love for this girl that he likes at school, and so he calls her out into the courtyard so he can like tell her that he's in love with her. And at that same time, he sees in the distance this really bright light that sweeps over the entire world, and every human, and I guess every animal as well, because birds were dropping and turning into stone as well. Every human turns into stone, and they're just frozen, but they're still cognizant. They can think. And it has a funny scene where you see Donald Trump.
I love that. Okay, so Donald Trump turns to stone, and immediately he starts thinking like consciousness slipping
away. I know. He couldn't hold out long, could he?
That was some intense like American takedown by this Japanese copywriter.
But yes, so we find out as long as you're... Oh, did we actually find this out in the first chapter, or do I just know this? Did they explicitly say that if your consciousness slips away that you'd...
Yeah, because people are like, consciousness slipping away.
Yeah, okay. So as long as you keep on thinking, as long as you stay conscious, then eventually, thousands of years into the future, your stone casing will crack open and you will be alive again and you'll be able to move. But if you stop thinking and you just give in to like the emptiness, you die. This whole time, it's like 3,600 years or something, Taiju is still thinking about his love, who he wants to see and he wants to be with. And he breaks out in a completely different area, and he tries to go and find her, and he finds his love frozen in stone on the tree where he almost confessed to her. And I completely skipped over the whole other character, Senku, who is like this high school mad scientist.
You're going into too much detail here. It's just we've got, okay, so society's reset. That's the premise, right?
Yeah.
And we've got our brains and we've got our bronze. What else more do you need to explain?
I don't know. Yeah, it's true. And they're going to try to rebuild society as fast as they can. That's Senku's goal, is to rebuild society.
Yeah, Mr. Scientist, Dr. Stone, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. So, should I hop into can you give your thoughts on it first?
I don't love Dr. Stone. I guess I get that it's like good, but it doesn't keep my attention that well. I gave it a 4 out of 5, but like I've read a couple of volumes of it and I don't really want to keep on reading.
Okay. I'm in the same boat as you. I gave it a 3 out of 5. And this is one of those series where everything about it is competent. The story is very competently put together. The characters are well characterized. The art's absolutely amazing. But basically, none of those things works for me at all.
Yeah.
Like, even though I know the art looks amazing, I think it looks ugly most of the time. And I really hate the female characters. I think they look the worst out of all of them. But we don't see much of that in this first chapter. And then similarly, it's a great premise, but I don't know. I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I lose interest in the series pretty fast. I wonder if it's because I'm just not that interested in.
Rebuilding society.
See, it's interesting, but like,
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. Like, that's weird. It's a weird thing he came up with. I'm assuming it's a man.
what here, let me try to put it into words. It's that you have this really interesting question of how they should rebuild society, and the answer, of course, is like science and technology, right? They need to start redeveloping the building blocks of our own society. And because they have the scientist character, he's the ones who's really going to go through and lead forward the charge in order to rebuild everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where it loses me, because the series, you don't see it much in this first chapter, but the series does a very good job of showing the scientific process and how they actually need to kind of adapt to the circumstance that they're in order to make the discoveries that they need. But I don't know, it's like I don't care about the experimentation, I don't really care about the science. Maybe it's that there's not like a huge focus on the characters. Like, what do the characters do? The conflict that ends up arriving later, I keep on talking about the later volumes, but I should just focus on this one. This first chapter's great.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I have to say. I just know that I don't like the series.
I think that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I don't like it. I don't like the series and I'm not going to read it.
Do you understand what I'm saying by like I don't really care about the science? Like, I think it's cool and I know people. It's like I can remember people that I've met in my life, especially in high school, like younger guys, who would be all over this because they love this type of science stuff of just like, yeah, how would you rebuild it? Like, what are the mechanics?
Yeah, no. Like, for some reason, it reminds me of, like, the setting reminds me of, what's that one manga where it's like they're twin boys who get dropped off into a prison planet?
Ju Rose?
Yeah. For some reason, like, the overgrown world reminds me of that setting, and I prefer the action of the other one.